There are silent laws that govern trust. Laws that, when mastered, make you walk into any room as if you own it. But when ignored, they turn you into easy prey. Today, you will discover 3 rules that can rebuild your posture, your voice, and even the way the world reacts to you. These rules are not found in books. They are born on the psychological battlefield, where power and perception meet. And when you understand them, nothing and no one will be able to diminish you again. If topics like psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. There is a moment in life when a man realizes he has been living anesthetized. Until then, his decisions were shaped by invisible fears, the need for approval, and the childish belief that the world is fair. But, in silence, something begins to stir within him. It is a discomfort, almost unbearable, in the face of everything he previously accepted without question. He begins to perceive the hidden manipulations in gestures, the masked intentions in words, and the fragility of those he once believed to be strong. This is the first symptom, when naivety begins to hurt more than the raw truth. It is here that the awakening is born, not as a sudden flash, but as a flame that burns slowly, consuming everything that is not real. The awakening of the dangerous mind is not about violence or physical destruction, but about breaking the invisible prison in which everyone lives. While most people seek comfort and predictability, the awakened one begins to seek tension, calculated risk, and the information that others avoid. He understands that knowledge is not neutral. It is a weapon. And that true freedom is not being able to do whatever you want, but not being controlled by what the system wants you to do. It is here that the dangerous mind separates from the herd, not just by what it thinks, but by the ability to think independently, even when everyone around becomes an echo of the same lie. The second stage of this awakening is abandoning the need for approval. He begins to realize how, for years, his actions were calibrated to please others, seeking a yes that, deep down, never mattered. The dangerous mind does not beg for validation because it understands that the price of being accepted is almost always your own essence. Here, the first aura of intimidation is born. It is not aggression, but the calm of one who does not need to prove anything. This man does not react on impulse. He observes, calculates, and only then acts. And when he acts, his movement is so precise that it seems inevitable. The dangerous mind also learns to be silent. Silence, which once seemed awkward, is now a territory of power. While others rush to fill every space with empty words, he understands that silence forces others to reveal more than they would like. He realizes that when he does not rush to explain himself, others begin to project onto him what they fear or desire. Silence becomes a mirror where others' weaknesses appear clearly, allowing him to see what no one else can. Another trait of this awakening is the ability to turn rejection and defeat into fuel. The ordinary mind shrinks in the face of failure, but the dangerous mind dissects it coldly. Each loss is an emotional autopsy. Where did I go wrong? Where did I trust too much? Where did I leave my guard down? Rejection ceases to be a wall and becomes a catapult. This man understands that every no he receives is just a strategic redirection, and that every blow suffered is in fact training to withstand greater impacts. Thus, his progress is not linear. He advances like a predator who only retreats to leap with more force. Over time, the dangerous mind develops a radar for human weaknesses, not because he seeks to exploit them constantly, but because he needs to protect himself. He sees pride disguised as humility, greed masked as friendship, insecurity dressed as arrogance. This does not make him paranoid, but extremely selective about who approaches. He knows that most alliances are temporary, and that even the kindest faces can hide poisonous intentions. Therefore, his trust is rare, and his circle small, but each connection is solid as steel. At the peak of awakening, the dangerous mind realizes that real power is not shouting louder, but creating a silence that everyone hears. It is not imposing fear through brute force, but making others think twice before acting against you. This influence is almost invisible. It infiltrates the behavior of others, alters their choices, without them realizing it. This is the point where the man no longer needs to prove himself. His mere presence changes the environment, as if he carries his own gravity, pulling everything into his orbit. Finally, the awakening of the dangerous mind is, above all, a return to one's own essence. After passing through illusions, resisting manipulation, and confronting himself, he realizes he does not need to follow a script written by others. He lives by strategy, not by blind instinct, by purpose, not by automatic survival. His strength lies not in dominating everyone, but in being uncontrollable. And it is at this point that he understands the true secret. The most dangerous mind is not the one that threatens, but the one that can never be imprisoned. And there is a moment in every man's life when something breaks. A specific, silent, and almost imperceptible instant that marks the end of who he was and the birth of who he will be. It is the point of inflection, the invisible line that separates the naive and vulnerable individual from the one who finally understands the game and begins to play it back. This moment is not always accompanied by shouts, explicit betrayals, or great material losses. Often, it is just a cold look, a closed door, or a gesture of contempt that cuts deeper than any knife. It is there that the world shows its true face and forces you to choose. Continue being manipulated or change forever. At the point of inflection, blind trust dies. You realize that many of the people you claimed were by your side were never really there. Compliments were fake coins, friendship was a conditional contract, and loyalty was a theater performed only while you were useful. It is when naivety dissolves and you begin to see human behavior not as you wish it were, but as it really is. Perception ceases to be filtered by hope and becomes guided by brutal clarity. You understand that the world is not fair, that kindness is not a shield, and that honesty is often a risk. This point is not just a mental awakening, but an emotional reorganization. The man who reaches here feels anger, but learns not to waste it. He discovers that misdirected fury is a weapon that turns against itself, while channeled fury becomes fuel for a more solid reconstruction. It is at this stage that emotion begins to be tamed by strategy. Every wound becomes a map, every betrayal a manual, every loss a silent training for the war ahead. You no longer feel sorry for yourself because you understand that the world does not care about your tears, but respects the silence of your reconstruction. The point of inflection also redefines how you deal with fear. Before, fear was a brake, something that paralyzed you in the face of confrontations, risks, and changes. Now, it becomes a radar. You realize that fear only indicates the territory that needs to be conquered. Where you once retreated, now you advance. Where you once hesitated, now you study and strike. Fear ceases to be an enemy and becomes a strategic ally, pointing to the areas where your strength needs to be forged. But perhaps the deepest change of the point of inflection is in how you see yourself. You stop seeking external approval to validate your identity. The opinions of others, which once shaped every choice, lose the power to influence you. Your standard becomes internal. You no longer act to be accepted, but to be effective. Your posture changes, your voice changes, even your gaze changes. It is as if every cell in your body were reprogrammed to convey a silent message. I am no longer the same. This transformation is not comfortable. It requires burying old versions of yourself, more naive, fragile, and often more pleasing. You realize that to survive and win, you need to carry a dose of coldness. Accept that you will not please everyone, and, in fact, should not try. You begin to act with sharp objectivity, driven by clarity and not by emotion. Your life ceases to be a stage for others' approval and becomes a battlefield for your own objectives. The point of inflection also teaches that there is no turning back. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. There is no more space to romanticize naivety because you know its cost. You understand that the world will not change to accommodate you. You are the one who must adapt to dominate the environment you are in. And this is not a curse. It is liberation. From here on, every step is calculated, every word measured, every alliance considered. You begin to act like a chess player who knows he can no longer move the pieces just by reacting. It is time to anticipate. In the end, the point of inflection becomes the watershed that separates those who are shaped by circumstances from those who shape circumstances. It marks the birth of a more dangerous man, not because he threatens openly, but because he has learned to control his own destiny. There is no way to go back to who you were, and, in truth, you do not wish to go back. For now you understand that pain was only the price of evolution, and that true power begins when naivety dies and vision becomes relentless. Dark intelligence is not just a skill. It is a state of consciousness, a deep perception of human nature that few possess. It is not measured by diplomas or technical knowledge, but by the ability to understand, manipulate, and anticipate behaviors with surgical precision. This type of intelligence does not display itself in trivial conversations or superficial demonstrations of wisdom. It manifests in silent observation, strategic patience, and the ability to transform perceived weaknesses into invisible advantages. To be endowed with dark intelligence means seeing the world as it truly is, without illusions, and knowing how to play within it effectively and discreetly. The first trait is keen perception. People with dark intelligence see beyond social masks, capturing nuances of language, gestures, hesitations, and omissions. They perceive hidden intentions, identify behavior patterns, and recognize when someone is trying to deceive or manipulate the situation. This perception is not merely intuitive. It is cultivated through practice and constant attention. The dark mind records details that most ignore, creating an invisible database that allows anticipating moves and preparing strategic responses before others even notice the problem. The second trait is strategic patience. Unlike impulsive or reactive individuals, those with dark intelligence know how to wait for the right moment to act. They understand that rushing decisions or confrontations rarely produces lasting results. Every move is calculated, every action has a purpose, and waiting is used as a powerful tool. In strategic patience, silence and inaction are not weaknesses. They are weapons. They provoke opponents, reveal secrets, and create opportunities that only a disciplined mind can perceive. The third trait is emotional self-control. Those who possess dark intelligence do not allow anger, fear, or anxiety to dominate their decisions. They observe emotions, their own and others, without being trapped by them. This control does not mean the absence of feelings. It means total mastery over how and when to use them. Anger transforms into focus, fear into alertness, and empathy into strategic understanding. The dark mind understands that poorly managed emotion is the greatest vulnerability of any human being, including its own. The fourth trait is subtle manipulation. Dark intelligence is not only about perceiving and waiting. It is about acting with silent precision to influence people and circumstances. But this manipulation is not necessarily malicious. Often, it is preventive, used to protect interests, avoid unnecessary conflicts, or guide situations toward advantageous outcomes. The master of dark intelligence understands that discreet persuasion is more powerful than direct imposition because true influence is perceived as the other's own choice, while in reality, it is the result of careful planning. The fifth trait is relentless adaptability. People with dark intelligence do not remain trapped by old beliefs, routines, or expectations. They adjust to changes with speed and precision, transforming obstacles into opportunities. Every challenge is a test of creativity, patience, and strategy. Relentless adaptability allows the individual not only to survive crises, but to use them as a springboard to consolidate power, advantage, or knowledge. While many collapse in the face of unforeseen events, the dark mind finds paths that no one else sees. These 5 traits intertwine, forming an invisible network of psychological power. Perception, patience, self-control, manipulation, and adaptability do not operate in isolation. They function as gears of a precise mechanism, creating a mind capable of understanding the world on multiple levels simultaneously. The result is an individual who moves through the world with silent efficacy, avoiding traps, identifying weaknesses, and exploiting opportunities before others even perceive their existence. But dark intelligence is not a given gift. It is a cultivated skill. Every interaction, every observation, every challenge faced becomes training. Those who develop it learn to transform every experience, positive or negative, into tactical knowledge, creating an internal arsenal that makes them almost untouchable in negotiations, confrontations, or intrigues. It is the ability to learn from life without being trapped by it, to use the world without being used. Finally, understanding the 5 traits of dark intelligence is understanding human nature in its rawest essence. Those who master these traits do not merely survive chaos. They transform it into advantage. They become invisible and omnipresent at the same time, perceiving movements that no one else notices and acting decisively without needing to announce their intentions. Dark intelligence is silent, strategic, and relentless. For those who possess it, the world becomes a chessboard where every piece, every player, and every moment can be anticipated, controlled, and used with mastery. Power, when deeply understood, is not just a position, a title, or an external resource. It is a force that emanates from the mind and presence, an invisible field that shapes perceptions, decisions, and behaviors around it. Applying power does not mean exercising brute control or imposing authority in an obvious way. It means understanding human dynamics, identifying vulnerabilities, and creating favorable conditions for your intentions to be realized without direct resistance. Those who master this art understand that true power is silent, subtle, and inevitable. It manifests even before anyone realizes they are being influenced. The first step in applying power is understanding the context. No strategy works in isolation. Every situation, individual, and group has its own rules, values, and limits. A powerful mind observes, analyzes, and internalizes these nuances before acting. This detailed analysis ensures that every move is precise, avoiding unnecessary conflicts and exploiting hidden opportunities. Applying power without understanding the terrain is like trying to move pieces on a board you do not know, risky and ineffective. The second aspect is the perception of people. Power is not applied in a vacuum. It manifests in relationships, influence, and the reactions of others. Understanding desires, fears, motivations, and weaknesses allows creating personalized strategies, ensuring that your presence becomes indispensable or your decision inevitable. When applied correctly, power transforms social dynamics into an instrument, and everyone around becomes a reflection of your subtle and calculated decisions. The third point is the strategic use of action and inaction. Knowing when to act and when to remain silent is key to amplifying influence. Power is not constantly demonstrated. It insinuates itself, accumulates, and reveals itself at the right moment. Hasty action often generates resistance, while strategic patience increases acceptance and creates the impression of inevitability. Every gesture, word, and omission is calculated to build authority without needing to proclaim it. The fourth trait is the manipulation of time and rhythm. Those who apply power understand that haste is the enemy of efficacy. Every situation has its own pace, and controlling that flow allows guiding events and people without direct confrontation. The ability to accelerate or delay decisions, to create tension or relieve pressure, transforms time into a powerful weapon. This silent manipulation of rhythm ensures that results occur exactly as desired, often before others notice the intervention. The fifth element is veiled in strategic communication. Words are weapons and shields. Tone, silence, and timing shape perceptions. Applying power involves conveying intentions without exposing them, suggesting directions without ordering, and influencing decisions without coercion. A master of this art understands that direct communication is not always effective. Power strengthens when it is perceived as natural, inevitable, or desired by others. The sixth point is adaptation and continuous learning. Power is not static. It changes as the environment, opponents, and circumstances evolve. Applying it effectively requires flexibility, the ability to absorb experiences, and to adjust strategies rapidly. A perceived mistake can be transformed into advantage, and every interaction becomes an opportunity to strengthen one's position. The powerful mind learns to reinvent itself without losing coherence or authority, always maintaining initiative. The seventh trait is control over others' perception. Power is applied not only by what is done, but by how it appears. Creating an image of competence, confidence, and inevitability makes others accept decisions, follow directions, and respect limits without noticing the influence. Manipulating perception is creating a subjective reality where your intentions seem natural and fair, making any resistance difficult and any support spontaneous. Finally, applying power is integrating all these elements into conscious action. It is not about dominating through force or explicit manipulation. It is about becoming a strategic presence, capable of guiding people and situations with almost invisible efficacy. Perception, timing, patience, communication, adaptation, and control of perception combine to create natural, irresistible, and inevitable authority. Those who master this art transform the world around them into a controlled board, where every move is calculated, every outcome anticipated, and power manifests silently yet completely over everything it touches. In relationships, most of the power is not visible. It manifests in subtleties, micro-decisions, and almost imperceptible gestures that shape the dynamics between two people. The invisible game is not an open battle but a silent dance of influence, desire, and emotional control. Those who understand this game realize that brute force arguments or obvious displays of affection rarely determine the outcome. True mastery lies in the ability to act strategically, anticipate reactions, and influence decisions without ever declaring intentions. The first step to understanding the invisible game is observing emotional and behavioral patterns. Every person has triggers, insecurities, and repetitive habits that define how they respond to situations and people around them. Identifying these nuances allows predicting responses and building paths of influence that appear natural. Power in this context is not abusive manipulation. It is strategic perception. By noticing how someone reacts to subtle stimuli, you create an invisible advantage, controlling the narrative of the relationship before it forms consciously in the other person's mind. The second aspect is the balance between presence and absence. Being constantly available or showing excessive intensity creates predictability, which reduces influence. The invisible game depends on measuring presence to spark interest and attention without giving in to the desire for immediate approval. Strategic absence is not indifference. It is a tool that generates perception of value, space, and mystery. Those who apply this rule understand that well-timed silence can have more impact than words or ostentatious gestures. The third point is veiled communication. In relationships, what is not said often weighs more than what is declared. Tones, pauses, glances, and small gestures carry meanings that can create connection or establish boundaries. Controlling these invisible signals is a way to apply power without direct confrontation. The ability to communicate intentions and emotions implicitly transforms trivial interactions into strategic moves that define the direction of the relationship. The fourth trait is managing expectations. The invisible game depends on not automatically giving in to others' demands. Those who understand the dynamics know that creating calculated expectations is different from deceiving. It is about guiding the other person to value what is offered and respect limits that are not explicitly imposed. Conscious manipulation of expectation shapes the perception of one's value within the relationship and strengthens the strategic position of those who comprehend these subtleties. The fifth point is understanding hidden intentions. Every relationship carries layers of motivation: desire for approval, fear of loss, pursuit of control. Identifying which factors drive the other person's actions allows anticipating decisions and adjusting behavior to influence the natural course of events. The invisible game does not eliminate affection or empathy. On the contrary, it uses psychological perception to create harmony while always maintaining a silent strategic advantage. The sixth aspect is selective reciprocity. In the invisible game, it is not about giving or receiving indiscriminately, but carefully choosing where, when, and how much to invest emotionally. Small gestures can have a great impact when applied with intention. By measuring attention, praise, and affection, a dynamic of appreciation and emotional dependence is created that strengthens internal power without ever seeming manipulative. It is the art of making presence meaningful while maintaining control over one's emotional balance. The seventh point is strategic patience. Relationships are built, broken, and transformed over time. Impulsiveness is the enemy of invisible power. The ability to wait, observe, and intervene at the exact moment ensures that every action produces maximum effect. A late gesture, a comment at the right moment, or a calculated withdrawal can alter the other person's perception and completely redefine the relationship's dynamics. Mastering timing transforms simple actions into silent weapons of influence. Finally, the invisible game is the integration of perception, action, and presence. It requires constant awareness, sensitivity to subtle signals, and emotional discipline. Those who master this art can influence without imposition, guide without coercion, and create connection without losing autonomy. Invisible power in relationships is not about manipulating feelings, but about creating a reality in which your intentions and boundaries are naturally respected. In the silence of subtleties, in the rhythm of patience, and in the precision of gestures, lies the true force that moves and transforms any human bond. Now that you understand the invisible game in relationships and how every gesture, word, and silence can shape the dynamics in your favor, it is time to apply this knowledge with awareness and strategy. If you want to continue awakening your mind to hidden truths, understanding psychological power in relationships, and mastering your own presence, subscribe to the channel now, activate notifications, and do not miss the upcoming videos that will transform the way you connect and influence the world around you. These two videos in front of you are not here by chance. And if everything you believe about yourself is only a reflection of someone else's gaze, click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking this mirror. You will have to risk the click. So, which one will you choose?